Sometimes I wake up to what I think is a door slam, and it's actually a rocket. And this is a madness. But this is why I've stayed here for these weeks, because I think the best journalism requires this kind of radical empathy. Whole other level of bravery. The foreign fighters and the medics, they don't have any massive groups protecting them. They're just here. These are these wild souls that are here beyond all fear, because they want to stand with free people against tyranny and evil. And they, so as much heaviness as everyone feels, when I talk with those people especially, I feel this lightness, this energy of freedom and courage.
Russia launched a total of 36 air and sea-based cruise missiles, guided air-to-surface missiles, and anti-ship missiles at Ukraine overnight and into Thursday. What's the latest where you are?
Bob, good afternoon from Kharkiv. Yes, last night was highly unusual. We had the air alarms began nationwide at about 2:15 in the morning. They lasted until 4:15. And since those Russian October 10th attacks, that was the first nationwide targeted missile strike. There have only been two categories of nationwide air alarms. Either it's reports of Russian jets over Belarus or over the Black Sea, and usually it's presumed these are training flights. Those alarms happen maybe a few times a week, maybe only once a week, and always during the day, and they usually only last an hour. The second type of alarm means and that there actually is evidence that missiles have been launched, and this type of alarm only happens no more often than once every 7 days. And lately, the past couple of months, it's been about once every 2 weeks. And so last night, was not even a week since the last week's attacks, the massive missile strikes throughout Ukraine. Not even a week had passed, and it was in the middle of the night. And so it was highly unusual, and sort of it kept everyone awake and scrambling to find out what was happening. In the end, out of those 36 missiles, the Ukrainians were able to shoot down 16, so only about half. And among those missiles were the K-22 cruise missiles. These are known, they were designed to destroy aircraft carriers, and the Russians are using them to hit civilian and infrastructure targets in Ukraine. So they can do incredible damage. And according to the Ukrainian Air Force, at the moment, and this is very tough to even consider, the Ukrainian authorities say they do not have the capability to shoot down these missiles, that they would need anti-aircraft systems in order to stop the K-22. And the missiles that did hit their targets last night were exactly these K-22 missiles. And so there we have reports of infrastructure that was hit, including far west in the Lviv region. And there's a great sense sort of anxiety. What are the Russians doing? Is this some new escalation? Others say maybe Russia is testing the system and finding the weak points in the air defense, or is it some kind of psychological game? And this is sort of and then not only then, so you have a sleepless night, and then at 9:27 in the morning, the alarm sounded once again, and then again at 12:11 midday, and then just an hour ago, we had a short alarm at about 2 p.m. And so we are in this great atmosphere of uncertainty.
Joseph, we get a lot of feedback from our listeners on your reports, and lately a number of comments have noticed what they think is weariness, nervousness in your voice. And you've said that there is a great feeling of apprehension there these days. So it's not surprising that I've noticed it a little bit in your voice, too. How are you feeling?
Yeah, well, I mean, the weight is heavy, and I've heard this from some of the listeners on social media. I've been in Kharkiv for about more than 2 weeks now, and I was thinking when I left Lviv, it was a Sunday evening. I had a pizza with a girl in a cafe, and it was, even though there's a heaviness of the war there, you still feel sort of the vibrancy of the city. Here in Kharkiv, from about 4:30, 4:45 p.m. every night, it's literally dark. Very few lights. There's damage and the signs of war everywhere. And then you have these frequent attacks. And it's often here, because we're so close to Russia, just 30 miles, the missiles hit before the air raid alarm can sound. And that does, it affects you. I mean, I find as I'm running or walking around the city, I turn a corner and you imagine the incoming missiles. Or I turn in another corner and I see the work of the local graffiti artist, Hamlet. He's been painting in the craters where there's shrapnel. He paints little flowers, and you see this all over the city. Sometimes I wake up to a noise and maybe it's a door slamming that I think is a missile, or sometimes I wake up to what I think is a door slam and it's actually a rocket. And this is a madness, but this is why I've stayed here for these weeks, because I think the best journalism requires this kind of radical empathy to really understand, the people about whom we are sharing these stories, and not analyzing it sort of eating popcorn. And so I think, I've really learned, Bob, by speaking with you on the radio, which was something new to me. So much of our media and sort of the media world I escaped in New York is attention stealing. And in speaking with you and your audience almost every weekday for a year, I've seen the power of radio to create intention-enhancing, attention-respecting journalism that allows for conversation and allows for empathy. And so and I think that also drives me to be here to get to know people better, to share their stories, and then I can share it with the audience. And in turn, people driving down to Dan Ryan can really feel what people here in Ukraine, whether they're Ukrainians or the foreign fighters, what they are feeling here. And so I appreciate this medium, an opportunity to share these connections. And I think it's good when people hear, if they do hear tiredness in my voice, because it reflects the reality here that, yes, there's a strong spirit and everyone bucks each other up, but these are very difficult days.
Joseph, you've really summed up the answer to the question, why are you continuing to do these reports daily? I admire your courage and your reporting, and you're absolutely right in what you say about delivering what may not be getting through in most of the media. And it's certainly understandable that you're apprehensive and a bit nervous these days as we approach the 1-year anniversary. And much has been made of the fact that on the 24th, who knows what Russia has planned. But isn't this offensive already underway? Is that what is going on now?
It is difficult to know. I mean, for example, in Bakhmut, Ukrainians have shut down. No volunteers are allowed to go into Bakhmut, especially after that attack on the medical evacuation team last week. And it's hard to get information about what's happening. What happened last night is certainly something new and out of the ordinary. And so, it seems that something has changed. And this is, and you have all, everyone's kind of, I think, training and prepared for what might happen. But it's just the anxiety of waiting. I think Tom Petty's saying about that somehow. But and as I see here, as I'm traveling here in the East, I move around to different hotels and you get to meet different people. And when I stay at the fancy hotels, I meet sort of the journalists and the United Nations people and people that have been in many disaster zones. There's a guy from Sudan, and he said here it's strange because you can kind of be comfortable. But then it's more terrifying because when those missiles hit, they're absolutely destructive, and you don't know when and where it's going to happen. And so all of these people are very brave, but they're sharing in this anxiety. And then when I stay at sort of the cheaper hotels, you meet the people with a whole other level of bravery, the foreign fighters and the medics. They don't have any massive groups protecting them. They're just here. These are these wild souls that are here beyond all fear because they want to stand with free people against tyranny and evil. And they, so as much heaviness as everyone feels, when I talk with those people, especially the volunteer fighters, the volunteer medics, the World Central Kitchen people, I feel this lightness, this energy of freedom and courage. And so even as everyone waits, there's, again, always the story, there's solidarity and full fortification as people prepare for whatever Russia might do. And again, Ukrainians are saying, any additional weapons and missile defense systems they can get will make every difference in the coming weeks and months.
I love your line today about some analysts are doing that while they're eating popcorn, and you're there on the scene with your perspective, and I'm glad it's as helpful to you as it has been to all of us listening. We'll talk again tomorrow. Thank you very much, Joseph.
Thank you, Bob.
Joseph Lindsley, world's most interesting man.
This I find in my garden. It's piece from rocket.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages.
Що сказав?